Hey guys, EDDBUD here, and today I've got a video for you which compares up various versions of Nike's training partner shoes over the last few years. With the introduction of the Tempo Next Percent, it got me thinking about the previous iterations of those training partner shoes. How does this one compare up against the Zoomfly, the Zoomfly Flyknit, and the Zoomfly 3? Quick word before we start, just want to say thanks to all of you who have subscribed. We hit the 10,000 subscribers marker over the last couple of days. I'm very grateful for all of you that have subscribed and support the channel on a daily basis. Let's get to it then, an in-depth look at Nike's Tempo Next Percent in comparison to the Zoomfly series. Straight off the bat, there's some significant differences in terms of weight and dimensions to the shoes. I got my measuring tape out and the scales. Here's some of those stats. So that Zoomfly 3 comes out as the heaviest of all of the series. It's also the narrowest in the heel. I always found this shoe to feel pretty unstable, certainly around corners, almost a centimetre narrower in the heel here than the other three shoes. We're going to look at uppers first. The Tempo Next Percent Flyknit here probably has more in common with the Zoomfly Flyknit than any of the other two. There's parts of the Flyknit here that feel very similar. Certainly up through the tongue here, it's got that similar elasticated Flyknit, otherwise I'm not sure that you'd get your foot in the shoe. They certainly feel very similar in terms of lockdown over the top of the foot. The length of the shoe is actually very similar as well to the Zoomfly Flyknit, and the heel area and tongue offer a similar feel. I mean, aside from having that side-on lacing, that's a slight difference. But the tongue sections feel very similar. Actually, this one feels really loose now. I mean, it's done a lot of miles, this shoe. It kind of feels really odd now, actually, looking at this shoe and having it in hand. Similar feel though to the Flyknit. The Zoomfly 3 is really unlike any of the other three offerings on today's video. I really didn't get a great lockdown from this shoe whatsoever. This one comes in as the longest of all of the shoes in a UK size 11 by some margin actually, and I think that was part of the problem. I think the upper worked well enough, it just felt a little bit over engineered to me and somewhat weighty. Just overcomplicated. They removed those fly wires, had these strange lace loops here, and there's no heel counter here whatsoever. Maybe that's part of the problem, that this shoe just didn't really work for me. Although I know it worked for lots of you out there. I think the lockdown order thus here would be probably the Zoomfly 3, good but somewhat variable in the Zoomfly, and top notch and foot hugging in the Zoomfly Flyknit and the Tempo Next Percent. That more considerable heel collar here in the Zoomfly really gave a better fit. Certainly a slightly warmer upper though. There's quite a bit of extra padding around here, around the ankle. Always felt like it was a bit of a mismatch. You had this very light upper material in the toe box and then quite substantial amount of material in the heel. I did have a few issues as well with the laces biting into the top of my foot here, where the tongue's very thin. It's not an awful lot of protection there. I think upper wise it's definitely the thumbs up for the Zoomfly Flyknit and the Tempo Next Percent. Midsoles now. Quite a large amount of the weight in these sort of tempo based shoes comes from that midsole foam. They progressively got heavier over each iteration leading up to the Zoomfly 3, and then fortunately we've gone down in weight a little bit at least with the Tempo Next Percent. Certainly coming in a little lower in weight is certainly an advantage for these tempo based training partner shoes. That aside, the bottom heavy nature of the React in the Zoomfly 3 did have me running some really great tempo sessions last summer, though it did at times feel a little bit like I was fighting the shoe. That thick React midsole and that general unbalanced, unstable feeling just didn't really ever go away. It did feel like it was fighting against the way I wanted to run. The Zoomfly and the Zoomfly Flyknit did feel somewhat more nimble and swift to me on foot, although I would suggest that the Zoomfly was way more rigid than the Zoomfly Flyknit, which is odd, because this one's got a carbon infused nylon plate and this one had the full carbon plate. I recorded some smashing times in early 2019 running some 5Ks in the Zoomfly. Obviously with the introduction of the Tempo Next Percent we have a return to that carbon infused nylon plate, or at least I think that's what it is. There's lots of different conflicting information about that, but I'm going to go with it. Some people say it was a plastic nylon plate. We don't know. Even Nike doesn't say so on their website. Still though, the full React is gone and it's been replaced with the much lighter and compressive ZoomX foam, which apparently has greater energy return or lower energy loss, whichever way you want to look at it. Obviously that's managed to lessen the weight a little bit, which is always a good thing. That ZoomX foam and the introduction of the AirPods here seem to address the balance of the shoe in the midsole, and I've found that it really does promote a midfoot strike on the runs that I've taken it out for recently. It's been a lot of fun actually. That's what running should be, right? It should be fun. I think one really big area of improvement here is underfoot stability. The tempo next percent being a centimetre wider in both the midfoot and also the heel. A whole centimetre against the Zoom Fly 3. It really is quite apparent underfoot. The shoe feels vastly more stable and assured, and it's really quite prominent from the off. It's like Nike have taken a leaf out of the React Infinity Run book with that quite wide landing platform in the front of the shoe. The feeling I had in the Zoom Fly Flyknit is back when I run in the tempo next percent. And I think the more and more I've worn the shoe, the more it's broken in and the better it feels. I think the introduction of ZoomX across the midfoot and the forefoot there is really welcome, and it really does make quite a difference. You do have to consider that the plate's directly underneath the insole back here in the heel. See where the little dot is there? That's just where the plate is. The ZoomX then starts round about here, so that's why I think they've gone with that crushed ZoomX insole, just to give a little bit of cushion in the heel. Certainly the most forgiving of the 4 shoes in today's comparison video. Just holding the Zoom Fly in hand now, that foam feels incredibly firm. There's no real comparison there, though I'd suggest that over a 5k run, probably a little bit more responsive. Although none of these shoes have really got an awful lot of road feel. Outsole time. I think against the other 3 shoes, the tempo next percent is a big improvement in terms of outsole. The Zoom Fly and the Zoom Fly Flyknit were almost ski-like in wet conditions. I can remember running the start of a 5k with the Zoom Fly on a small grass section and there was just no traction whatsoever. Icy paths in this one as well. It's like taking your life into your hands at times. The forefoot rubber there just had almost no depth to the lugs and quite a low level of versatility in my opinion. I know a few people had parts of the heel rubber just coming off as well, popping off during a run. I didn't experience any of that, although you can see that they got pretty mashed. I mean, this one's got over 250 miles into it and it still looks pretty good. So yeah, not my favourite outsole here. The Zoom Fly 3 outsole rubber was a take on the next percent. It didn't feel anywhere near as assured or sticky though. It definitely feels like a different sort of rubber compound here. It doesn't feel anywhere near as squashy. Really not the greatest traction. The tempo next percent forefoot rubber here is much closer to the Alpha Fly. The lugs are that bit deeper. Gives some good grip here on various different surfaces, but I think there's still some room for improvement on smooth or wet surfaces. Certainly going over some storm drains and some covers. It's pretty slippery. Certainly not even close to the Adidas Quick Strike or New Balance's Dynaride stuff. When it comes to protrusions, those guys are still the masters. The rear rubber sections have improved dramatically though. Much deeper lugs and fins here really do provide some better traction, far superior to the Zoom Fly series. Far more aggressive traction patterns here, and I'm actually happy to take the hit in terms of weight when we've got a little bit more here to provide some reasonable grip. I think the more aggressive pattern here does make the shoe a little bit more versatile. If you aim to use this on a variety of different surfaces, then I think it's a better shoe than the previous ones. Value now. In terms of value, the shoes are just getting more and more expensive. I think that's pretty much general across all running shoes. The tempo next percent's the highest it's been. This one was 169 earth credits. Certainly a high price for a training shoe, despite its excellent nature at high speed. Not a lot of people are going to want to spend that much on a training shoe. Perhaps one they can't race in either. I think the Zoom Fly Flyknit was a top shoe in terms of weight for training and racing. It was around £140 I do believe when it first came out, although if you can find them, you can pick them up for much less than that these days. The Zoomfly 3 is reduced now to about £100 in some colourways. I think if people didn't really like the unstable feel in the Zoomfly 3, then the Tempo Next Percent actually is a much more stable shoe underfoot, thus making it a little bit more of a versatile shoe. It's probably going to appeal to a few more runners than this one. I noticed there's quite a few pairs of the Zoomfly still available in places like StockX. Quite low prices as well. Makes for a really good, very nippy, swift shoe. The lightest of the bunch. It might not have all the bells and whistles, it's got a slightly older type of foam, but it's certainly a really great shoe for some high speed, short distance work. Could even use it for some long runs at tempo pace as well. If you can find it, maybe you can hire the Zoomfly. I'm really enjoying this shoe. It's certainly been one of my favourites and given me some of those feelings I had from wearing the Zoomfly Flyknit, which I really loved. Are you coming from the Zoomfly to the Tempo Next Percent? How is this strange and technology-filled shoe working out for you? I'm a big fan. I turn into a Thomas the Tank Engine style steam train when I'm wearing this one. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. A musical interlude. I dug back out my R. Dean Taylor greatest hits. I say greatest hits, it's more like of a best of collection. Quite a few people will know Ghost in My House. It's a really great track that is very famous over here in the UK actually for Northern Soul Nights. Wonderful tune, really good pace. R. Dean Taylor did some more plaintive type numbers as well. Indiana Wants Me is really beautiful, and Gotta See Jane is a really great tune. I remember really liking Shadow as well at one point. I think in my more sort of introspective sort of days. So go out and check him out, R. Dean Taylor. Not a lot of people might know about him these days, but yeah, certainly a great singer. It's really interesting arrangements. Hope you've enjoyed today's video guys, and thanks for tuning in, I very much appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications, which will alert you when new videos have been launched. It will really help the channel out a huge amount as well if you give this video a thumbs up like and share it with your running buddies. My name's Ed Bud, and I'll be seeing you